Hello everyone, DM Geezer Jim starting out today. We're going to do a little bit more chitty chatting, a little bit more reading through the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you're new to my series, I suggest you go back to the first couple. We are reading in audiobook mode. We are looking at 2024 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. My whole goal here is I'm a big believer in reading the content, making the content your own, but I also have to acknowledge that not everyone has the time or resources to do a lot of reading, so my hope is that we will get into audiobook mode here a little bit and encourage people to use the content that's been given to us in the book. Try to encourage you guys. I'm going to read it to you, but hopefully you'll pick it up and add it to your collections later. So we are starting Chapter 2. Quick perspective check. Remember that this book was written for our brand new Dungeon Masters, our players that have just started D&D 5e and said, man, I want to play, but I don't have anyone to play for. I got a group of people that want to play, but I don't know how to DM. This book is for you. It's written for y'all. The language of writing, the pacing might be a little bit slow, different for more experienced dungeon masters. It's okay. There's still going to be some good stuff in here for you. Don't throw out the book because you've been, don't disregard the book because you've been running games successfully for 40 years, but at the same time, don't feel like you're missing out if you haven't read the book. So keep that in mind. This is for a lot of people who haven't read the DM's Guide, so we're going to try to get more people into the Dungeon Master's Guide by reading it directly to you. I'll probably do know your players and group size this first little section here for Chapter 2 and a little bit of commentary at the end of it. But enough about that. Let's start reading. Chapter 2, Running the Game. Building on the basics laid out in Chapter 1, this chapter goes into more depth on running a D&D game as a Dungeon Master. Know your players. While your player's role is to create characters, the protagonists of the campaign, breathe life into them, and steer the campaign through their actions, your role as Dungeon Master is to keep the players immersed in the world you've created and to give the characters the opportunity to do awesome things. Knowing what your players enjoy most about the D&D game helps you create and run adventures they will enjoy and remember. Once you know which of the following activities each player in your group enjoys, you can tailor adventures to your players' preferences. It's rare to gather a table of players who all enjoy the same aspect of the game. The trick is to find a balance so everyone can get some enjoyment out of each game session, even if certain encounters don't match their preferences. At best, a group of players is a lot like their characters, in that having different interests and capabilities enable them to handle a broad range of challenges. Our first player type is acting. Players who enjoy acting like to embody their characters' personalities, perspectives, and attitudes. They might like dressing up or using their characters' voice while playing. They enjoy social interactions with NPCs, monsters, and their fellow party members. You can engage players who like acting by giving them opportunities to develop their characters' personalities and backgrounds, allowing them to interact regularly with non-player characters, highlighting the roleplay elements of combat encounters, and incorporating elements from their characters' backstories into your adventures. The explorers. Exploring. Players who desire exploration want to experience the wonders that a fantasy world has to offer. They want to know what's around the next corner or hill, and they like to find hidden clues and treasures. Engage players who like exploration by dropping clues that hint at things yet to come, letting them find things when they take the time to explore. Providing evocative descriptions of exciting environments and using interesting maps and props. Giving monsters secrets for players to uncover or cultural details for them to learn about. Fighters. Players who enjoy fantasy combat like the excitement of battling villains and monsters. They thrive in situations that can best be resolved in combat, favoring bold action over negotiation or investigation. Engage players who like fighting by springing unexpected combat encounters on them, vividly describing the havoc their characters wreak with their attacks and spells, including combat encounters with large numbers of less powerful monsters. Instigating. Players who like to instigate action are eager to make things happen, even if it means taking perilous risks. They would rather rush headlong into danger and face the consequences than cautiously plan their actions. Engage players who like to instigate by allowing their actions to affect the environment. Include things in your adventures to tempt them, letting their actions put the characters in a tight spot, including encounters with NPCs who are as feisty as unpredictable as the players are. Optimizers. Optimizing. Players who enjoy optimizing their characters' capabilities like to fine-tune their characters for peak performance by gaining levels, new features, and magic items. They welcome any opportunity to demonstrate their character's excellence. Engage players who like optimization by using desired magic items as adventure hooks and rewards, including encounters that let them leverage their character's most potent abilities, providing quantifiable rewards like experience points for non-combat encounters. Problem solvers. Problem solving. Players who want to solve problems like to scrutinize NPC motivations, untangle a villain's machinations, solve puzzles, and come up with plans. Engage players who like to solve problems by including puzzles and tricky situations that require thinking, rewarding planning and tactics with in-game benefits, and creating NPCs with complex motives. Many groups include players who come to the game, the socializers. Many groups include players who come to the game primarily because they enjoy the social event and want to spend time with their friends, not because they're specially invested in any part of the actual game. These players want to participate, but they tend not to care whether they're deeply immersed in the adventure, and they don't tend to be assertive or very involved in the details of the game's rules or story. As a rule, don't try to force these players to be more involved than they want to be. The next one is your storyteller. Players who love storytelling want to contribute to a narrative. They like it when their characters are heavily involved in an unfolding story, and they enjoy encounters that are tied to and expand on an overarching plot. Engage players who like storytelling by using their characters' backstories to shape the stories of a campaign, making sure encounters advance the story, making their characters' actions steer future events, giving NPCs characteristics and connections that the adventurers can explore to uncover new adventure opportunities, including plot elements that call back to decisions the adventurers made earlier. Okay, the next section is going to be group size. I think this is its own section. We're going to do group size next, so we're just a couple minutes into it, and then we'll do some commentary on the first section. Pretty big section, so we'll get to that here in a minute. Group size, as referred to in Chapter 1. Group D&D's rules and published adventures generally assume 4 to 6 players plus the DM. The following advice helps you adjust adventures to work for smaller or larger groups. Again, just a little bit of a call out here. This is for your day one DM. If you've got experience, you know different ways to handle it. But this is, I'm new to DMing. How do I handle this? Small groups. A group that contains fewer than 4 players might find combat encounters difficult, especially if the party lacks important capabilities, such as armored characters to stand toe-to-toe with enemies or healing magic to keep everyone alive. You can compensate by reducing the number of monsters in a combat encounter or by giving the parties resources they need, such as potions of healing. You can also add party members as described in the sections that follow. DM-controlled adventurer. You can make an adventurer character of your own, sometimes called a DMPC, a Dungeon Master player character, to accompany the party. This is a rewarding way for you to roleplay with your friends while they're exploring your world, but keep in mind that you'll have to run this NPC in combat. Be sure to keep the player's characters in the spotlight and don't take away the player's agency by having your character make decisions for the group. NPC party members. You can add non-player characters, NPCs, to the adventuring party. Use the NPC stat blocks in the monster manual to represent these supporting characters. If you don't want to run these NPCs yourself, invite one or more of your players to take on an NPC as a secondary character. These NPCs might be apprentices or employees of the adventurers, so it's natural for the main characters to take the lead in exploration and social interactions while the NPCs fade into the background. See NPCs in Chapter 3 for more information. Players with multiple characters. One or more of your players can each play 2 characters. Running 2 characters at once is a challenge, so make sure those players are comfortable taking on multiple characters. This approach works best in a game that's focused on combat, since it fills out a party with combat-capable characters. It can be difficult for a player to roleplay 2 characters at once. You might suggest that the player focus on roleplaying one character while relegating the other character to a supporting role. Large groups. Next section.
The biggest consideration with large groups are maintaining order at the table and keeping combat from becoming too slow. Structured turns. If you find yourself in a situation where individual players are having trouble getting a chance to do things during exploration or social interaction, have the characters roll initiative and act in initiative order just as you do in combat. Taking turns ensures that everyone has a chance to do something, using this approach sparingly as it can feel artificial and sometimes slow down the game. The next thing is a party leader. Consider having the players designate a party leader who is then the only person who tells you, the Dungeon Master, what the group is doing. It becomes the leader's role to work with the rest of the players to find consensus on what a group will do. Next thing is speeding combat. Players who have to wait a long time between the character's turn in combat are susceptible to distraction. Consider these tips to speed combat with a large group. Be generous with information. If you tell the players what the armor class of their opponent is, you reduce the steps of interaction needed to resolve an attack. Instead of telling you a number and asking if it hits, a player can simply tell you that an attack hits and how much damage it deals, perhaps adding some narration for good measure. See narration in combat later in this chapter. In the same way, if you know each character's AC, you don't need to ask whether a monster's attack hits. Help players keep up. If a player isn't sure what to do on their turn of combat, help the player decide by offering a quick recap of the state of battle. How many foes are still standing and how hurt do they look? What's the most immediate threat to that character? Make initiative obvious. Display the initiative order to your players so they each know when their character's turn is coming and can think ahead about what their character will do in their next turn. Using initiative scores, see running combat in this chapter, and perhaps seating the players in initiative order can be helpful with a large group. Roll handfuls of dice. Encourage players to roll the dice for their attack rolls and their damage at the same time, and you can do the same. The next section is absent players. When one of your players is absent, what do you do with that player's character? Consider the following options. Fading into the background. Have the character simply fade into the background. This requires everyone to step out of the game world a bit and suspend disbelief, but it might be the easiest solution. Act as if the character were absent, but don't try to come up with any in-game explanation. Monsters don't attack that character, who also returns the favor. Once returned, the player resumes as if the absence never happened. Narrative contrivance. Decide the character is elsewhere while the rest of the party continues the adventure. Come up with in-game reasons for the character to temporarily leave the party and rejoin later, such as following up on a rumor or reporting back to the party's patron. Substitute player. With the absent player's consent, have another player run the missing player character's character or run the character yourself if you feel you can do so. Whoever runs the character will need a copy of that character's sheet and should strive to keep that character alive and use that character's resources wisely. Give absent characters the same XP that the other characters earned each session, keeping the group at the same level. Some groups like to work out a policy regarding how many missing players is too many to proceed. For example, your group might play as long as no more than one person is absent. If two more people can't attend a session, consider playing a short adventure with different characters and perhaps a different dungeon master, or bring out a favorite board game. Next section we're going to do today is incorporating new players, and then I've got some commentary on this first section here. So, incorporating new players. When introducing a new player to the group, revisit the group's expectations and limits. Your session 0 still applies to a new player. See Ensuring Fun for All in Chapter 1. Then have the new player create a character who is the same level as the other characters in the adventuring party. If the new player has never played D&D before and the rest of the group is higher than level 4, consider taking a short break from the campaign and having everyone play a new level 1 character for a session or two while the new player learns the ropes. This can also be a good opportunity for another player to take a turn as a DM. If you're incorporating a new character into the group in the middle of an adventure, work with that character's player to come up with a story hook for how that character joins the group, and make sure the player is happy with the choice. Suggested story hooks include the following. Long lost friend. The new character is a friend or relative of one of the adventurers. Alternatively, the new character is connected to the adventurer's patron or a member of an organization the other characters are linked to. In either case, the new character has been searching for the group, perhaps bearing important news. Rescued prisoners. The new character is a prisoner of the foes the other characters are fighting. When rescued, this character then joins the group. Sole survivor. The new character is the sole survivor of an ill-fated group of adventurers. The new character might be able to offer a clue to help the party avoid the same grim fate that befell the other group. Special guest stars. The story hooks for incorporating new players can also work for occasions when you want to bring in a player into the group for a single session. For example, you might have a friend visiting from out of town who wants to join your game briefly, or perhaps you have a player you're thinking about adding to the group, but you want to make sure they'll be a good addition. Incorporating an occasional guest player is also a great way to maintain a roster of players as backups in case one of your regular players has to drop out of the game. We'll do this multiple DM section here, and then we're going to be done with today's reading, and then I'll get into some comments. We got some good time going here. Making good time when I just read, huh? Multiple DMs. Many gaming groups switch DMs from time to time. The following section describes situations that allow for multiple DMs and ways multiple DMs can add to the group's fun. Occasional breaks. Take a break from being a DM if you need to recharge your creative juices, plan out the next arc of your campaign, or finish up an adventure that you're working on. By taking a break, you can create an opportunity for another player to assume the DM role for a session or two. If not everyone can make it to a scheduled session, that can also be an opportunity for a different DM to run a short adventure. A variety series. Some groups don't want a long campaign with sweeping plot lines. They prefer short, unconnected adventures. With that style of game, different players might take turns as DM for 1 to 3 sessions at a time, with each adventure standing as a self-contained story. Concurrent campaigns. You and the other DMs in your group can take turns running adventures for a few weeks or months at a time, with your campaign on hold during another DM's turn. Some groups play multiple times each week, with different DMs running their campaigns on different days. The next one is a shared world. Some groups take a large established campaign setting and divide it up geographically so different DMs can run separate campaigns in the same setting. In theory, characters can travel from one DM's region of the world to another's, creating continuity in the campaign even as the characters might be involved in several plot lines. Rather than dividing a campaign geographically, you and the other DMs in your group can divide it thematically. Using the settings in Chapter 5 of this book as an example, each DM could focus their campaign on one of the 3 overarching conflicts of that setting. This approach allows the same group of adventurers to sink their teeth into all 3 overarching conflicts while ensuring that each story feels distinct. Joint DMs. 2 or more DMs can share the creation of a single campaign, working together to maintain continuity from session to session and making sure that each DM's adventures advance the larger story of the world and characters. When players who are also DMs are playing their characters, they shouldn't let their knowledge of the campaign story influence their characters' actions. Those characters step out of the action when their players take turns as DM. Joint DMs can also team up to run each session of a campaign, with each DM focusing on the aspects of the game they most enjoy, or the DM's trading focus from session to session. One DM might run combat descriptions and keep a battle moving, while the other focuses on miniatures and musics. The 2 DMs can play 2 different NPCs in a social interaction encounter. Between sessions, they can collaborate or divide up world building, encounter creation, and other tasks. Okay. So we did 3 sections today. We did Know Your Players, we did Group Size, and we did Multiple DMs. There's some good information in all of these. I think the most important one is Know Your Players. These terms here, an actor, an explorer, a fighter, an instigator, an optimizer, a problem solver, a socializer, a storyteller, they are interchangeable with other terms that you may already have. The murder hobo, the chaos goblin, the min-maxer, the drama kid, whatever. The point being, these are some generic terms that a new DM can get into their brain to understand how different players approach the game. Players can be multiples of these types. You can be an actor and a socializer. You should be an actor and a socializer. Maybe not, but you follow what I'm saying. Don't try to pigeonhole each of your players. If they cover a couple of these tenets, that's okay. That means you have more space to play with adventure style, okay? Expect some crossover between these categories, between these players. But the main thing that you're wanting to do is identify what the players enjoy, aka know your players, okay? What are they playing? What are they sitting down to play D&D for? If it's just to hang out with your friends, they don't care what the adventure is, and they're socializing, that's not a bad thing. You know that as long as they're engaged with their group and having fun, you got the freedom to kind of run what you want as a DM. But you definitely want to make sure, when possible, that you put a combination of encounters in to address your party. That's what they're talking about. We're not all going to have 5 SEAL Team 6 Special Forces combat heavy guys at our table, so you can't just focus on the Monster of the Week dungeon grind that 3 of the 5 want to play with. You're going to, in all likelihood, play with a spectrum of players that have different interests. So first, identifying those interests, and second, understanding what those interests look like in game terms. That's what this chapter is about. That's what Know Your Players is speaking to. Understanding what your players expect and giving you examples of what you can bring to the table in regards to an adventure design to make sure that they're engaged and having fun. There's no way to make everyone happy all the time, but as long as we can make most of the people happy most of the time, you're doing a great job. Doing a great job. The next thing we looked at was group size. This is going to apply a lot. There's a little bit more nuance to this when it comes to combat encounter planning that they didn't really touch on here. I personally do not... this is commentary. This is my opinion. The DM-controlled adventurer should not be a thing. You shouldn't be playing as an equal with your party and running the game as well. It's kind of hard to be fair about it. I've noticed a lot of DM-controlled PCs end up being the main character, and your players are just simply there to carry the bags and heal and do the lockpicks that your DM-controlled PC can't do. If you choose to use a DM-controlled adventurer, make sure that they are not the main star. They are complementary. They are there as support, nothing more. More likely, use your NPC party members with that one. Large groups. I will speak on this because I run a lot. I'm a paid DM. I run 18 D&D games a month up at the RPG Dungeons here in DFW area. All of the groups are, all the tables are 6, so I'm dealing with large groups all the time. This is some good information here when you end up with a large table. Because honestly, if it's 4 of you and you got one guy that wants to play and you're like, no, man, I don't want to play with more than 4 because the book said no. Be willing to let, more people at your table can be good. Your pace can slow down. There's going to be a lot of crosstalk to manage. So where you can exert control is, as a Dungeon Master, is where you need to. The structured turns, the initiative in a social situation, that's huge. It does slow things down, but it ensures that everyone at the table has an even voice. The party leader thing, that's going to vary by the charisma and the chemistry in your party. If everyone really gets along really well, then you're going to have that party leader head, and it's going to be a natural thing, and it's going to be fine. If you got some tension at the table, you're going to see that pop up in the party leader thing. The speeding combat thing is, that takes everyone, though. This section is talking about, as far as a dungeon master, these are things that you can do to speed up combat, and that's very true. But the one thing that you cannot do is make sure your players are immersed in, we can encourage them to, but there's nothing I can do to make a player pay attention at the table. Oh, it's my turn? Oh shit, what just happened? You got to have a chat with that player. Hey man, I get it, the combat runs a little bit long, but it gets even longer when you're distracted and you lose track of what's going on. I really need you to focus up so we can keep combat moving, okay? Help players keep up. Be generous with information. Those kind of things. So this is all really good stuff. And the last section on multiple DMs, it's good that they are addressing DM burnout. I like that the book does give you the possibility for other ideas, reminding you that you don't have to be the forever DM. Take breaks. Let other people at the table share the load. The shared world thing, that's was back in... what was it? The Living Greyhawk in 3rd edition, 2001, 2002, when that started, and we're talking about it now in modern D&D on online campaigns called the West Marches style, the shared world. As long as you have a dungeon master, a group of DMs that can agree with each other, shared worlds aren't bad. But these are just options. The joint DM thing, that's interesting, man. I don't know, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, but it may work for you. Think of all these as suggestions and tools to help you as the dungeon master understand what your players are expecting at the table, knowing your players, and number 2, how to manage the size of the group when you have people that aren't going to show up tonight, when you plan the campaign for 4 and lo and behold, you're now up to 7 because everyone's wanting and they brought their spouses and their kids and their brothers and sisters and you can't say no, but now you've got a huge table. These are techniques that will help you do that, okay? Finally, the multiple DM section is what it is. There's a little bit of stuff here that can give you some ideas, but I think the main thing to take out of this is it's okay to take a break as a DM. It's okay to share the load. It's okay for multiple people in the same play group to be the DM. The different styles will build on each other. You'll learn from each other. You'll grow with each other's assistance. And hey, I like how you did that. Oh, I love how you do that. And you're just going to become a better DM by playing with other DMs. I promise you that. So that's the end of Chapter 2, Section 1. Know your players and group size and multiple DMs. So we're going to go ahead and end the video now. We will continue on with another one where we'll get into narration and probably resolving outcomes. The social interaction, this chapter is a little bit meaty, so we'll take our time on trying to keep each video around 20 to 25 to 35 minutes. So keep them digestible. Hey, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you sharing your time with me, and I hope you're enjoying this series. I would love to hear back from you in the comments. If there's something you have a question about, want a little bit more specific information, put something in the comments. We'll dig it around and look up together. If you want to join in with our live chat, we're on Twitch Tuesdays through Saturdays, Twitch TV, DM Geezer Jim, same name as here, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We talk about a lot of this, the D&D content, especially the newer rule set. We talk about using classic content for updated world building, campaigns, adventures, all kind of stuff. But I invite you to come back to the channel, push that like button, push that subscribe button, run over to that Twitch, push that follow button, and join us for more. But above all else, thank you for sharing your time with me, and I hope you found this this recording and this video useful. And we'll be back for more soon. Take care.